course, the first portion of the stream is the portion where you just hear lots and lots of clicky clacky ticky tackies and mouse clicks and stuff as I put out the call. Let people know the stream has begun. Today I am moving at a speed just slightly greater than molasses in December. Or is it molasses in January? There's a phrase like that. Having one of the worst days I've had in a while. Still got to the doctor's appointment. Still did the things that needed to get to the duns. Well, except for one. One thing still needs to get the duns. So hopefully I can get that done tomorrow. Hopefully I can actually get to bed on time tonight. That would be nice for once. Of course, last night was mostly my own damn fault. We got a lot to do, too. We've got, in addition to beginning Act 3 on Exiled Urgic, we've got a big patch for Path of Exile 2 that I should go over. I mean, it's relatively small as far as the actual word content, but the ramifications are pretty big. We've got a new balanced data slate. All those changes have dropped. I was honestly expecting that to be like one of the last things that dropped this month, but nope, they're putting it out right now. So we get to have fun with that. I'm going to do that as a traditional blog, though, because I want to actually do some proper research, make sure all of my knowledge is up to date as I dissect that. Almost done. I already notified on that one because that one is actually automated. I'm going to have to put like a bunch of bots on my own Discords. All right. Just move this to the side here. Move this where it belongs, where everyone can hear me. Make sure I've got chat visible. All right, and let's talk 40K. So we will go ahead, even though I'm going to do a full thing, let's go ahead and do like a quick read over of the article. Deep Strike and AP in the crosshairs. So Deep Strike has always been a bit of a problem child mechanic. There are certain mechanics that are really difficult to fine tune. And honestly, I honestly feel like in many cases, Deep Strike is relatively balanced right now for 40K. So like the vast majority of Deep Strike units work fine. In the past, like they had a lot of crazy rules that made Deep Strike more of a risk. I actually kind of found a lot of rules fun. Like, for example, like you're bringing in Space Marines off of a drop pod. The drop pod could scatter. Your teleport coordinates could be off target. All kinds of fun things to make it fun and fluffy and risky for the power that Deep Strike gives you. Good. AP, but the problem, I should finish Deep Strike, actually, there's more to say there. But the problem right now with Deep Strike is that it is not always balanced. There are some units that have very powerful versions of it that allow them to do really cool things that those units probably should be able to do, but may or may not be priced properly. And there are some units that should have cool versions of Deep Strike, and they don't. Like, my own personal pet peeve for my own faction is the Moloch. They've never had the Moloch's Deep Strike rules really right, because the whole idea behind the Moloch is it's like the graboid from Tremors. It is coming up underground and assaulting and trying to swallow Sing's whole. So they've usually worked in some kind of mortal wound thing with it, and that's currently what it's got. It's got this big mortal wound bomb that it drops. But I mean, that's not the theme. That's not the fantasy of it. The fantasy is the Moloch is coming up from the ground and attacking a unit. And you can't do that. You cannot do that with the Moloch. Pardon me. Got a little slurpy there. You know, I was kind of hoping like we might get some kind of Jormungandr style detachment, something that would give units like a charge roll out of Deep Strike for some type of advantage, like a +2 to charge out of Deep Strike for deep striking models army wide would be very fluffy. And then considering that most Tyranid burrowers aren't that powerful, it's not that big a deal. But then you get something like Aquilons, which they release for guard, and they released very, very reasonably costed. Like, way, well, reasonable implies it's an appropriate point cost. They were too cheap. They were just too cheap. And they became the terror of the competitive battlefields like overnight. Like overnight, just every guard player that could get their hands on them, grabbed them, painted them up. And of course, this always leads to the murmurs of, you know, is Games Workshop intentionally doing stuff like that in order to drive sales? And of course, another one that always gets points to is the Desolation Squad. But I would also argue it's like you're cherry picking your examples. There are lots of examples of new units coming out and not really being all that powerful. My Norns are a good example. The Winged Tyranid Prime is a good example. The Screamer Killer, the new version of the Screamer Killer, is a good example. So if they're trying to make new models overtuned in order to sell them, they're doing a lousy job at it, in my opinion. All right. AP. AP is very... There are certain weapons... In my opinion, the team didn't get enough time to cook. I will say, I've said this before, I will say this again. 3-year edition cycles are too short. They're just too short. We really should be looking at something closer to 5-year edition cycles. I can't think of another tabletop game, not counting Magic, and even then, Magic rules changes don't happen very freaking often. Okay? I cannot think of another tabletop game where the rules change as frequently as 40Ks do. And I'm not just talking about balance tweak, I'm talking major changes. And the reason for this is that the rules team doesn't get time to cook. Now, part of the theory behind this, I can see some people arguing, including potentially some people at Games Workshop, that GW is never going to have enough time to properly balance and iron out the wrinkles of a rule set. They just can't do it. that rule set needs to get into the wild, where it can then be tinkered and played with by the community, where you, instead of having just a handful of playtesters playtesting rules, you've got hundreds of thousands of players around the world playtesting rules. And so therefore you get a much more balanced game. But then you spend like the first 2 years balancing the game, getting it back to normal, and then at best you've got another year. And that's the dream scenario. Like, ninth edition, they were still tinkering with the rules all the way up to almost all the way up to the release of 10th edition. So like they had a significant, 9th edition received a significant balanced data slate in January of was it 21? I'm losing track. No, it's 22. In January of 22, 9th edition received 23. God, I can't keep track of anything. My head is, I should not be trying to do anything math related right now. Just not until, at the very least, until I finish this tea. But yeah, 9th edition, January of 23, they received a massive balanced data slate, overhauling multiple rules in the game, completely redoing the detachment system. And then, of course, shortly thereafter, we had Arcs of Omen with the whole boarding action thing. And those were supposedly set up to go smoothly into 10th edition, and that was a lie. Sorry, G, I'm calling them I can see it. Like, I love you. I love you at times, and I hate you. You're balanced on that knife edge. You're at that point where you are large enough that you can do cool things, like that new secret level episode that came out. That was fan-freaking-tastic. Okay, you're balanced on the knife edge. You can do really, really cool things, but at the same time, you're at that point where, you know, corporate pressure and pressure from, you know, investors and stuff like that, and the needing to keep that growth spiral constantly going, you know, is getting to that point where it's starting to shift you away from being, you know, the best version of yourself that you can be. And we as fans, we always have to make sure that we're pushing pressure back, pushing pressure against the investors, against the profit motive, to say, hey, you should be earning your money by making miniatures we want to buy and games we want to play. That's how you should be doing this, not through, you know, not through marketing schemes and things like that. But yeah, so all of that rant about AP, because when the community was hyping us up for 10th edition, one of the things they told us is they took a look at all of the units and they tried to put them into their battlefield roles. They tried to actually make sure there was a spot in the faction for every unit, and that every unit had a specific role or something you could do, and that they were rebalancing all the weapons. They had the whole new strength toughness system, and they were rebalancing everything about that. And in many cases, the best thing they did was they went through weapon profiles and they took an AP off of everything, whether it should have had an AP taken off of it or not. Okay. And the end result is some weapons just aren't performing the way they should. My classic example is the Meltagun. Meltaguns in the lore are anti-tank weaponry. That is their role. And they've got the AP. They've got the AP to be an anti-tank weapon, but they don't have the strength. They don't have the strength characteristic to be an anti-tank. Now, their strength is high enough that they're going to at least be wounding tanks on 5s, but an anti-tank weapon should be wounding 4s at worst. And then you've got other weapons that, you know, completely and totally overperform. The classic examples from the start of 10th and the D cannon. So the weapons really don't feel actually all that tailored to their role. And that's been improving. They've been going through. It's very clear. It is very clear looking at the new Deathwatch Index that they had a mind to make sure that Deathwatch War Gear actually worked. Changes to things like Inner Circle Companions, changes to things like Dread Knights. It's very clear they are going through changes. To, the change to Synapse where I get +1 strength so I can actually wound things. It's very clear they are going through and they are making changes. But the reason that they have to do that is they didn't get enough time to cook. When it came time under the crunch between COVID and the fact that they've only got 3 years to overhaul almost 30 factions. Like it, we're what, 26 and counting now? And that's before Emperor's Children come out, before whether or not we ever get a Dark Mechanicum army. If they ever flesh out Vashtor. And there are people who are like, yay, the Great Horned Rat is now a Chaos God. Let's get Space Skaven. Let's get Skaven in 40k. So it's like, there's only so many factions we can have, that there's only so much work you can do when you got that many factions that you're gonna try to balance, that many models, that many units. So of course they're gonna go, we'll just take -1, we'll just take a pip of AP off of everything. Don't worry about it too much. Just take a pip of AP. It'll work. And it didn't work. It did not work. All right. Whispers from the Warp have brought another substantial update to Warhammer 40,000. Oh, I do find it interesting they're doing it this month. So they previously have been doing these in January. However, another thing that happens in January is LVO. So I have a feeling this time they're trying to make sure this comes out before the holiday so that all of the tournament organizers who are doing their World Championship finals in January all get to have time to look at this and prepare for their tournaments. And then, again, in particular, in LVO. So the tournament organizers can look at this and they can decide do they want to have LVO finishing off with the old meta, or do they want to just go ahead and use this? And of course, Games Workshop would very much like LVO to use this balanced data slate. So having it out earlier means more time for more tournament results to come in and more time for tournament organizers to prepare. More time, of course, for the competitive players to actually prepare. All right. In this update, we have updated the balanced data slate, the facts, and the errata documents, and there are some points adjustments in the Munitorum field manual as well. Here's the design studio with more information. Yeah. Yes. I love these. I will never get tired of these. I absolutely love the way they do these photographs. We have Sisters supported by Valkyrie against Necrons and Imhotep right there. This year we released 4 updates to the game, 2 balanced data slate updates and 4 points updates. This was the plan we have kept throughout the year, but moving forward we will be updating this plan after seeing your feedback and trying to navigate the challenge of points only updates. So they want to stop changing the rules to the game. It's very clear they want to stop changing the rules of the game. People were complaining the rules were changing too drastically. They've been changing too much. So they're trying to release a final balanced data slate, a final, set of rules where we can say, okay, these are the rules to the game, and now they're going to go to points. I think this is a bad idea. If this were after all the codexes were out, if we had all of the books out and we knew how the books were performing, that would be a different thing. Now, unless they're planning on adjusting codex balance in facts and errata, but it would still be nice to have the balanced data slate where those things can be play tested and we can check and change things as need be. In 2025, we will plan to make 4 updates again, and each time we'll potentially make changes to the Munitorum Field Art Manual, Army Rules, Datasheets, Detachments, Facts, and Erratas. We believe this is the best way for each update to improve the game experience for all players. Okay, so basically they're going to make 4 updates. All right, I misread that. So they're going to be playing it by ear. It sounds like every update, they're going to decide what the game needs. 3-inch deep strikes. We are making some blanket changes to rules that allow units to deep strike 3 inches away from enemy units. We felt this wasn't the most interactive rule and created some haves and have-not armies with reserve denial rules. We moved the range out to 6 inches to reduce the feeling that some players had no options to counteract this rule. Okay, so 3-inch deep strike is going away. It's now 6-inch. So Aquilons, I'm not sure how that's going to affect the Sanguinor. But the Sanguinor can deep strike into combat, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. We'll have to take a look at that. AP stratagems. We've also reduced the strength of stratagems that reduce AP for incoming attacks for the full phase. They have now been changed to reduce AP of incoming attacks from 1 unit. Our hope is to give players more options for interaction with this defensive stratagem. So Armor of Contempt is getting nerfed. As for major faction-specified changes, we focused on the Adeptus Sororitas, the Genestealer Cults, and Codex Space Marines. Adeptus Sororitas. We have adjusted the rate at which players can generate miracle dice to make them a more precious resource and one to be spent only at the most critical moments. In addition, we have made some adjustments to the Bringers of Flame detachment to bring it in line with other detachments present in the Codex. Okay, so it seemed like originally the design ideas were that Eldar, who apparently won't be getting Strands of Fate in Miracle Dice form anymore. Eldar and versus Sisters, the Eldar started with more of their dice that they could use. And Sisters had fewer dice to start with, but then those Sisters could get more dice more reliably throughout the game. So it looks like they're changing that. I've heard rumors, I can't remember if I read this in an article or if this is a rumor mill thing, that the Eldar Codex won't have the same Strands of Fate rule for the army rule, that instead the battle focus rule will be becoming the army rule, so all units are going to get a reroll, and then different detachments, and then maybe I think they said the Farseer detachment was going to get something like Strands of Fate. Which will, of course, make the Sisters Army rule a much more bespoke, defined thing. But they're going to make it so that you're not generating, lots and lots of miracle dice, it looks like. And, of course, Bringers of Flame, they tried to nerf it by nerfing certain key units, but unfortunately, the Sisters Codex isn't that deep. So they nerfed a lot of units that the other detachments needed to bring as well, such as Hallowed Martyrs. So they didn't really change the fact that Bringers of Flame was the top detachment. They just brought all of the detachments down. And so they need to actually change the rules to make Bringers of Flame more in line with the others. Genestealer Cults. Alongside a few stat adjustments and datasheet abilities, the big change here has been to rework Cult Ambush to remove the random nature of how units return. Now players will get a set number of resurgent points to spend based on their game size, which they can use to pick which units return, as long as they have sufficient amount left. Okay, yep. This is great. Especially if they do this by point limit. Now, that does mean you're going to have to do freaking math during your game. You're going to have to go, okay, I can bring this many of this type of unit. But it also means that effectively, a Genestealer Cult player now gets to recycle and bring a set number of units, where before they could end up bringing no units back, or they could end up almost doubling the size of their army. So making it more reliable is probably a good move. Space Marines. If your army does not include units with the Black Templars, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Death Watch, or Space Wolves keyword, you are getting an upgraded version of Oath of Moment. This is designed to even the playing field between players who want to use Codex Space Marines as opposed to those who also have their own unique Codex supplement to draw from. In addition, we have made profile and ability adjustments to encourage players to revisit a number of units that now have some great new options. If this line has to be doing a lot of work. This line has to be doing a lot of work. Because if this line doesn't include Vulcan, and Agatone, and Cave on Shrike, And oh darn it, who's the Imperial Fist special character? If it doesn't include the special characters for the compliant detachments, you're just playing Ultramarines, because Ultramarines were already pretty competitive with their non-compliant brothers. I mean, like, I can't remember, but there've been still recent games. I can't remember which one, but there was a recent game, a recent tournament, a recent GT where Ultramarine Vanguard still plays second. You know, I don't think it won it, but it placed second at a major GT. So Ultramarines are a good army. So just giving them more powerful oath of moment doesn't, it means you're going to play Ultramarines instead of playing Black Templars, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Death Watchers, Space Wolves. So you're still getting preferential treatment. Of course, cue all of the shouts that that's what, Jiba wants along. They want the boys in blue to be the poster child and to really rock the house. But we'll see. We'll have to take a look. And again, I'm going to do this. This is going to be a full written up blog. I'm going to go and I'm going to pull up my stats. I'm going to take a look at some of the more recent army lists. Like we just had the World Championship. We'll take a look at some of the World Championship lists. And we will see and take a look. So I can do like the most informed, balanced data slate opinion on this. But yeah. This line right here, this is going to have to do a lot of work for this to really work out. You've got the salamanders here, and yeah, I'd love to see salamanders on the table. They've got 2 special characters, which is more than a lot of the other compliant. So you got Phyros. I forgot about Phyros. What is the name of the freaking... Changes have not been limited to these 3 factions. It's going to come back to me. Again, don't grow old. It's a trap. Changes have not been limited to these 3 factions. We have made tweaks to army rules, detachment rules, unit abilities, and datasheet profiles across the range. All of these have been made to further improve the external balance between different factions and the internal balance within the factions, allowing players to feel they have more powerful options than ever. This also sounds like you're going to be even more relying on the app to have the most up-to-date rolls. We've also made changes to points for units that have proven too powerful, though overall there are fewer points changes as update due to the proximity to previous points updates. Additionally, with all new detachments coming out for Grotmas, we prefer not to overdo any changes. We're going to perform a review after all of them have been released, when we can start to see what trends emerge. We hope you enjoy all the changes. And then the complete download for free below. The complete update can be downloaded for free below, but yada yada yada. Please note that one of the changes in the Company of Hunters Detachment Please note that one of the changes in the Company of Hunters Detachment for Dark Angels contains an error. The change is meant to affect Mounted Strategist enhancement rather than Master of Maneuver. This error will be corrected in January. All right, from Jose. If I understand correctly, if I have a generic list of Marines with a unit of Sword Brothers, I can't use the new oath roll. That is correct. This even includes, like, if you're taking a allied unit, if say you're playing Ultramarines, if you take an allied Death Watch unit from Agents of the Imperium, then you do not get the new Oath of Moment. So anything with these keywords, anything from a Divergent chapter, and you do not get the new Oath of Moment. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a full write-up of that later. I got a lot of stuff to talk about in stream today. But for now, we're going to focus more on the Grotmas calendar. But yeah, it is only pure Codex compliant armies get the new Oath of Moment. All right. You're welcome, Jose. Again, maybe the wording is weird, but it's clear from the article what they intend. Wielding the devastating power of the warp solely on behalf of the Emperor, mind you, was today's Grotmas calendar detachment for the mighty Space Marines, the Librarius Conclave, who are all getting books for Grotmas this year. Ooh, another nice diorama. I love my new Hormagaunts. They're so great. The new Hormagaunt sculpts are fantastic. Alright, the Psychic Space Marines, who make up the ranks of the chapter's Librarius, usually stand apart from their battle brothers, many of whom find their mastery of occult disturbing. Despite their misgivings, no Space Marine doubts the might of their librarians. On rare occasion, generally as a response to demonic invasions or machination of Xenopsychers, a group of librarians may accompany a hand-picked task force to battle. When leading squads of transhuman warriors into the fight, this conclave will enhance their battle brothers' already supreme strength, speed, and endurance with channeled empiric energies, confound their enemies with illusory deceptions, or obliterate the foe in blazing torrents of flame. They can wield psychic disciplines to suit the peril at hand, choosing one discipline each battle round. So this sounds like it's going to be very similar to Gladius or to the Death Watch detachment, where you're going to have a series of buffs, probably 3 buffs, and you get to pick one each battle round until you've used them all. Biomancy augments your troops' prowess. Divination guides them along the truest path to victory. Pyromancy empowers their weapons. Ooh, telekinesis shield them, and telepathy lets them cut through confusion and illusion. Looks like you're going to get 5. So we got 5 buffs coming. The enhancement and stratagems have enhanced effects depending on which discipline is active. For example, Celerity lets a unit advance in charge, but with Biomancy active, it lets a unit fall back in charge. While Fiery Shield helps your units avoid attacks in melee, and with Pyromancy active, it also makes enemy weapons hazardous. Grotmas is all about family. Even your nefarious and strange stepbrothers, so that's why Chaos Space Marines are dropping in unannounced for tomorrow's Grotmas calendar. If you're puzzled about a present, you can't go wrong with spiky gold trim. We're getting CSM tomorrow. I wish it would remember that. I do not know why it does not remember that. All right. All right. So we'll go ahead. We'll download the balanced data slate. Oh, actually, no, there's a lot of these. I'm not going to clutter up my screen in front of you guys. So we are just going to proceed to the new detachment, new tournament companion. A lot of these are updated indexes now, too. So, yay, I got to find it. Here it is, Librarius Conclave. Oh, at least that didn't take long. All right. Detachment rules, psychic disciplines. Librarians spend their lives mastering psychic disciplines, learning how to manipulate the energies of the Immaterium to confound their foes and embolden their battle brothers. At the start of the battle round, select one of the following psychic disciplines. So this is start a battle round. Okay, so you're calling your shot here. If your opponent is going first in the battle round, you'll need to not only pick a discipline that's going to help you through their turn, but then will benefit you during your turn, and they will know which one you've got. So just like with Call the Wa, your opponent can use their turn to react to which discipline you get. So that is a bit of a drawback, but it looks like you've got a bunch to select. Until the end of the battle round, the Psychic Discipline is active and effects apply to all Adeptus Astartes Psyker units from your army. So, Biomancy Discipline. Add 2 inches to the move characteristic of the models in this unit. All right, so this is also one you're not going to want to have free floating psychers. You are going to want to make sure all of your psychers are attached to a unit, because it looks like all of these are going to affect the units that have that psyker keyword, which you give your units by attaching a psyker to them. So Biomancy Discipline, add 2 inches to the move characteristic of models in this unit. Obviously a great first turn pick. Divination Discipline. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1 and a wound roll of 1. So reroll ones and hits. So even if you can't fire at your oath target, you got a benefit there. Pyromancy Discipline. Each time a range attack made by a model in this unit targets an enemy unit within 12 inches, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. That is always money. Telekinesis Discipline. Each time a ranged attack targets this unit, subtract 1 from the strength characteristic of that attack. And Telepathy Discipline. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack, you can ignore any or all modifiers to that attack, weapon skill, or ballistic skill characteristic, and or any or all modifiers to the hit roll. So this one is very situational. You're mostly going to be using it most of the time to target a unit with stealth. This one is a potential first turn pick if you are going second. This is just whenever you get into range and whenever you're ready to open loose with your attacks. So that means you are going to have to make sure you're coordinating your units. But whatever is your go turn, this is what you're going to take. The good news, of course, is that it's a lot easier to get into position and lines of sight than it is to secure charges when your opponent gets to respond. But this does still signal your opponent, and they're going to make sure that every unit they can possibly get is going to be out of line of sight of all of your Psyker units. This is the next one that you're going to be using a lot during go turns. And then again, this is if you're going first, this is your turn 1. You can also probably use Telekinesis Discipline if you really, really need to hold on to an objective for mission play. So, but you combine this with Armor of Contempt. Of course, that'll now be the new Armor of Contempt, which we now know just only protects you from one unit, not all units. So, all right, enhancements. Prescience, 25 points. Those who specialize in prognostication may foresee the flow of battle and position their allies accordingly. Adeptus Astartes cycle model only, excluding Terminator models. Once per turn, when an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback move within 9 inches of the bearer's unit, that bearer's unit can make a normal move up to D6 inches or up to 6 inches instead if the Divination Discipline is active for your army, and that's 25 points. So 25 points to give a unit of Space Marines a reactive move. There are lots of units I think that could benefit from that. This is one where, again, I don't have all the codexes yet. I do not have Codex Space Marines. But this is one where it's really going to be dependent on what Psykers can attach to what. Obviously, you can't do this with the Psyker and Terminator armor, or the Librarian and Terminator armor, I should say. So you can't do this with your Terminator. I think the Librarian and Phobos armor can already attach to a unit that has a reactive move, but I think it can also attach to, I think, any Phobos. So other Phobos that don't have reactive moves, you could potentially give that to them, which is very powerful on lots of different Phobos units. Celerity, 30 points. The powers of the Immaterium flow through the Psyker, heightening his speed and that of his battle brothers. Again, Psyker model only. The bearer's unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. And if the Biomancy Discipline is active for your army, it is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back. So this is great. Now here's one you might want to put on your Librarian and Terminator armor. Attach them to some Assault Terminators and get those Terminators into battle faster. Obfuscation, 20 points. By manipulating the minds of the foe, practitioners of telepathy may obfuscate their presence. Psyker model only. Enemy units cannot use the Fire Overwatch stratagem to shoot at the bearer's unit. And if the telepathy discipline is active for your army, the bearer's unit cannot be targeted by ranged attacks. Pardon me. It can't be shot within 18. Or outside of 18. So that's a very good rule. Unfortunately, it's only active when run wound, but still, blocking Fire Overwatch, I'll pay 20 points to block fire Overwatch. Thank you very much. Now, of course, this doesn't block the new Knight rule, the new Knight stratagem. It only blocks specifically fire Overwatch. But again, I will that strat sees use. So like, I will totally pay 20 points to not have my unit shot at by a freaking Land Raider Redeemer. And I'm sure my Space Marine buddies will pay 20 points to not have their units shot at by Pyrophores or Neurotyrants. Fusillade, 15 points. The Librarian reaves the ammunition of his allies in armor-eroding halos of azure fire. Halos of Azo, I think was what I was about to spooner. Psyker model only. Ranged weapons equipped by models in the bear's unit have anti-monster 5+, and anti-vehicle 5+, and the sustained 1 ability if the Pyromancy discipline is active for your army, and 6 inches to the range characteristic of those weapons if telekinesis is active for your army. And that's only 15 points. This is, I think, the must-have in this detachment. I think if you're taking this detachment, it's auto-include, because this enhancement is it's cheap, it's 15 points. It's active in 2 battle rounds, whereas all of the others get their full benefits only in 1. And considering what a Librarian can attach to, you're usually going to be stuck with low strength weaponry. Yeah, you'll have the odd rocket launcher. I don't know if there's a Librarian that can attach to something like Eradicators or Exterminators or things like that. But for the most part, you're going to have low strength weaponry. So having the anti-monster 5+ or the anti-vehicle 5+ to make sure that you're getting wounds through, and if any of those units that you can attach a Librarian to have dev wounds, yeah, you're taking this one. You're taking this one. So I'm going to call this so far, because I haven't done this yet, I'm going to say this is C to B tier for your enhancements. Oh, wait. The start of your battle round, select one of the following psychic disciplines. Until the end of the battle round, that psychic discipline is active, and its effects apply to all Adeptus Astartes Psyker units from your army. Do you notice something missing? There's no, you can only select each of these enhancements once per battle round, or once per game. So you can stack these. You can use these throughout the game. So if you just really need to move fast throughout to play the mission, you can just keep Biomancy active. If you just want the rerolls, if your opponent's good at hiding their oath targets, you can just keep Divination active. That greatly makes up for the fact that you're calling this at the start of the battle round and not the start of your turn. So that buffed this, in my opinion. I was thinking this was a C to B tier detachment roll. I'm still not going to put it above B, because again, you've only got so many Psyker models. Now you can attach them to a lot. It's just I don't see the benefit of bringing 3 of every Librarian in the Space Marine Codex. I just don't see the benefit. There's not enough flexibility of where you can attach them in order to benefit that. But you're still going to be able to benefit a decent number of your units, but it's still not your entire army. Detachment rules that affect your entire army are always better. I would say Gladius is still stronger, even though you're much more limited. But so I would say this is a B tier detachment rule. This is an S tier enhancement. I'd say this is at least A. This is, I want to say it should be cheaper, but I struggle to put it below A, because Advance in Charge is just that good. It's so much more mobility. And then reactive moves are usually, I would say, an A tier as well. So we've got basically an A tier enhancement section. So So far, we're off to a good start. Let's take a look at these stratagems for us. So 1 CP for sensory assault, a strategic ploy stratagem. Paranoia, confusion, and panic are heightened to a debilitating degree as librarians alter his foe's perception. Used during any command phase. You target an Adeptus Psyker unit from your army. Select one enemy unit that is within 18 inches and physical to the Psyker model in your turn. Until the start of your next turn, the enemy unit is pinned. While a unit is pinned, subtract 2 from that unit's move characteristic, 2 from charge rolls made for it. In addition, if the telepathy discipline is active for your army, the enemy unit must take a battle shock test, subtracting 1 from the result. I have to admit, when I started reading this flavor text, I was expecting the opposite. I was totally expecting the opposite. I was expecting that this was going to make you do a battle shock test. Like, I was expecting the unit must take a battle shock test, and if telepathy is active, you subtract 1 from the result. This is fantastic. This is an S tier stratagem. Start of your opponent's command phase, you just pick a unit and go, you. And they're that, they have that kind of movement penalty. And they might be battle shocked. Like, this is fantastic. You'll use this every turn you possibly can. Iron Arm. 1 CP strategic ploy. This librarian lends skull-shattering weight and impact to melee strikes by transmuting flesh into unyielding metal. Use in any fight phase. Target one of your infantry units that is within 18 inches. So it doesn't have to be a Psyker unit. It just has to be within 18 inches of a Psyker, of course, with the Psyker being within 18 inches of themselves. Until the end of the phase, add 1 to strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped by your models in your unit, or add 2 if Biomancy Discipline is active. +1 to strength is good, +2 to strength is way better. Just ask Blood Angels players. This is another good one. Now, this is one you're only going to want to use this when you've got Biomancy working. So you're going to try to set this up so you're using Biomancy in the turn that you're charging, so that you can really get the hit off. And even though you can't, it's nice you can use it in any fight phase, but you're going to want to use this on the charge. Still, you can use it reactively if you get to strike back when you're doing the swing back. Assail. 1 CP strategic ploy stratagem. Using nothing but the power of his mind, a librarian can rip rubble, try saying that 6 times fast, boulders and other debris from the surrounding terrain and hurl them at the phone. I'm going to hurl rubble at your phone. Take that, Apple fanboys. All right. Use it in your shooting, and you select one of your Psyker units. Select one enemy unit within 18 inches of and visible to 1 or more psycho. I guess they are a little psycho. Or maybe my tongue was about to say psycho. Maybe you've got some subjugulators running around on their unicycles. Excluding units with the lone operative ability, so you cannot hit a lone op with this. And roll 6d6. Add 1 to each result if telekinesis discipline is active for your army. For each 4 up, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So it's an additional little mortal wound bond you can do. Note, you can stack this with grenades, so when you absolutely have to kill something and you've got the CP in the pocket, you can finish it off. It should be it does have to be eligible to shoot, though. So you cannot shoot with a unit and then assail. You have to assail first. So this is going to be one of those situations where you'll have a unit that is weakened, and then you'll pick your Psyker unit and you'll say, I'm going to assail that unit. and then you will fire with that unit. Probably at something else. All right, and of course they have Armor of Contempt. And of course, we have just found out that this has been nerfed. Prescient Precision, 1 CP strategic play stratagem. Sharing some of his prescience with his battle brothers, a librarian can guide their fire. You use this in your shooting phase. You pick a Psyker unit, and again, that has not been selected to shoot. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, that attack has lethal hits and ignores cover ability as well if the Divination Discipline is active for your army. Ignores cover is very good. Again, lethal hits, you're going to have this on a lot of low-strength firepower because of what your Psykers can attach to. Although, man, can you imagine if they gave Blood Angels back their Libby Dreads? Have a Librarian Dreadnought with some of these rules? But yeah, lethal hits is relevant. And remember, that's in addition to potentially getting to reroll ones to hit and wound. Of course, this is meant to, and this stacks with Divination Discipline. So you're going to use this when you've got Divination Discipline active anyway. So you're getting lethal hits with rerolls. So that's really powerful. Finally, Fiery Shield. 1 CP strategic ploy. As the enemy closes in for the kill, the psychic, yeah, I guess he is a psychic. The Psyker manifests his psychic will in a raging inferno that obscures imperiled allies and threatens to immolate any who come close enough to land a blow upon them. Used in the fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its target, 1 infantry unit, mounted unit that is within 18 inches of a Psyker and that was selected as the target of 1 or more attacking units' attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll, and if the Pyromancy Discipline is active for your army, weapons that target your unit have hazardous. Ooh, that is a lot of potential casualties. And you stack that with Armor of Contempt. That can... There's a term that's being used in AOS 4 right now called porcupine units. That can very much turn any one of your units into a porcupine. Like put this on a big squad of Gravis. All right. The one thing I'm going to note is Psyker, Psyker, Psyker. Half of these stratagems can only be used on either a Psyker or a unit joined by a Psyker. The other 3 can be used on other Adeptus Astartes units, but none of them can be used on, but this one can only be used on infantry, and this one can be used on mounted or infantry, and Armor of Contempt is Armor of Contempt. So you're going to want to run pretty vehicle-like, because you don't have a lot of strats that are going to benefit your vehicles. You're going to want to use a lot of infantry. You may want to put in some mounted units to get some objective play with them, especially since mounted have gotten better with the new movement rules. They're still not the best units in the Codex by any stretch of the imagination. If it weren't for that, this would, I think, be an S-tier stratagem section. Considering how limited it is on who you can target, I can't put it above A tier. So this is fun and fluffy. This is fun and fluffy, and I think there's enough power here that you could potentially take this into an actual, like, matched play scenario, especially if you're just having fun with your friends, and you could have some success. Once again, just like what we saw with Dark Angels before, this does not beat Gladius. This does not beat a Gladius. I don't think this beats Vanguard either. I don't think this beats Ironstorm. But you can play this. This is not a do-nothing detachment. Unfortunately, right now, most of the Psykers, most librarians and Psykers in the Space Marine Codex are not particularly valuable data sheets. They're not particularly efficient. But as we've heard, we've of course got a whole balanced data slate to look through. And again, that's going to be its own thing. That's going to be a full blog post on my Tumblr blog. Again, I'll probably break it into multiple parts, and we'll take a look at things, and we will go over all of the changes. I don't know if it's going to be one of those things where I have to do one for each faction like I did last time. I might have to. At the very minimum, I'm going to need to do one post for Space Marines, one post for Sisters, and one post for GSC. So, yeah, other than that, that's where I stand. I think you can have fun with this. I do not think this is going to be the new terror of the top tables. This is not Star Shatter. This is not the Halo Screed. This is just a fun, fluffy detachment. If you want to be competitive with it, you can. If you really like your librarians, you can have fun with it on a competitive table. But you should be acknowledging you're giving up your Gladius. And again, there's no limitations on here. The only thing that is limiting this, okay, is Black Templars and Space Wolves do not have a lot of access to Psychers. Black Templars have none. You cannot take a librarian in a Black Templar army. So Black Templars can't make use of this. Space Wolves, I believe their Rune Priests do count as Psychers. So you'll be using Space Wolf Rune Priests as opposed to Libbies, but they can't take Libbies in. You can't take Libbies in Space Wolf army. Blood Angels, Dark Angels, they can have a ball with this. Death Watch can have a ball with this because Death Watch can take Libbies. So yeah. I think that's all there is to say on the matter. I've got even more work to do. So up next, I'm going to go probably get a little snack. I already ate while I was at the doctor today. So I'm going to get a snack. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to go over Path of Exile patch notes. So until next time, which is tomorrow, when we get to see what CSM has in store and they get their Knights detachment, which I am sure Zinch will be very happy about. This has been actually no. Zinch is 7. What am I saying? Khorne is 8. Slaanesh is 6. Zinch is 7. Zinch 7. Darn it, I can't remember the sacred numbers for Nurgles and Zinch. Oh well. I'm a fake fan. I have to come forward and just say it. I can't remember the sacred numbers of chaos. All right. Until next time, this has been Divine Erdrick.